My Gavanan Melonin, and well met indeed. I am Arachir Galadirthan, the head of the modding team behind Divide and Conquer, and welcome back to Divide and Conquer as we continue on with the faction overviews, and this week covering the Woods of Lothlorien, or I believe they're called the Realm of Lothlorien? Let's find out. Yes, they are indeed. So here we are as the Realm of Lothlorien. So we'll kick on with no ado. Your starting domain is small, I'm afraid, with the regions of Limhir and Caras Galadon, and those are your only provinces. I used to pronounce Caras Galadon incorrectly, and someone very politely pointed out to me that I was pronouncing the DH sound incorrectly, and it's very silent. It isn't hard like the. It's silent like Galadon. Almost implied, really. Anyway, continuing on. Your initial army is also very, very small. So Lord Celeborn sits with a couple of units of your earlies, and High March Warden Haldir only has a single unit to his name. There's no one in any forts or anything like that. You stand with just those 5 units as your entire army. Very small indeed. Your capital is Caras Galadon, and Lord Celeborn is your faction leader. Let's get him out. I'd already pressed the spacebar. That is the unique look of whoever is your leader. It's nothing to do. There are no individually custom models. That is the look of any general. So the leader and the general look very similar, except the leader has a much darker red cape and no helmet, and that's the only thing separating them. And the captain looks like that in traditional Lothlorien grey. Your diplomat comes from Caras Galadon as well, of course, and he comes from the Mirror of Galadriel, of all things. That's the only unique building that it has. Limhir having no unique building at all. The bodyguards, Lord Celeborn is an absolute monster. Arguably one of the best bodyguards in the game, actually, which certainly will be a top 10 video. It's a cracking idea. The Berio Ingalaith are formidable warriors, protectors of the trees. Melee attack of 19, missile 10, defense 33. As you'll see, they are formidable. And so Celeborn is a beast. However, in version 2.2, the version that these overviews are all for, Lord High March Warden Haldir, is not a beast. He's a very good archer unit, as you can see, with having Galatharim March Wardens with 10 missile attack. But once you've run out of arrows, he's really susceptible to death. So you've got to be very careful. And those are your 2 bodyguards. Neither of those are your standard bodyguard. So you've got custom bodyguards all round at the start. Rebel expansion, you can go north to Erui, and then you're knocking on the doors of the Anduin. You can go south to Adraichan, and then you're knocking on the door of Rohan. You can go east to Achnorion and try and beat Dol Guldur to it, but they're already thinking about it from turn 1. It's one of their most favourite expansion locations. And that is it, I'm afraid. Then you are fresh out of rebels to crush. You've then got to attack one of your many neighbours. Wrong form. There we are. Diplomacy. You start allied to the Kingdom of Rohan and the Dwarves of Khazad-dûm, but interestingly no elves and no other free peoples, including the Anduin. And you are only at war with Dol Guldur. This is an attempt to replicate as best as we can, whilst also having to adhere to the to certain gameplay features. An attempt to show that Lothlorien was heavily isolated in the time of the Third Age, and very much their own little independent kingdom with very little contact or anything outside of their borders. Famous isolationists. In fact, one of the only real elf that we know of in the Third Age to come from Lothlorien is, of course, Elrond's wife, and even she spends a lot of time there even without him. So, very isolated. The reason you're allied to Rohan is because otherwise, unfortunately, Rohan and Lothlorien had a very, 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 very strong desire to attack each other straight away. And so you would often see Lothlorien and Rohan going to war. In the version of Divide and Conquer that doesn't use the Total War submod, people weren't pleased with that. So the only way around it is to force them to be allies. So they are. So economy and buildings then. Oh, sorry, your other neighbours, of course, are the Dwarves of Khazad-dûm and the Goblins of Moria, or the Misty Mountains, as they are called in version 2.2, and that's it. Those are all of your neighbours. So, as I say, economy buildings, much like the Woodland Realm, you have no restrictions, you have no real problems. You get every building and you get every level of every building. You can build as many strongholds as well that you want, so you can upgrade castles to your heart's content. So in terms of unique buildings, then, again, unfortunately, you are identical to the Woodland Realm. The two factions were so similar. The Gwaith I Rhywntyn is available to you as well, as is the Dance Guild from the previous episode covering Mirkwood. You get the same Warriors Guild with the Bladesmith Guild and Master Bladesmiths Guild. And, of course, your Garrison Quarters gives you your garrison troops, or the armory and militia armory, giving you garrison troops. No other unique buildings available to you, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. You are one of the few nations that gets the theatre and the conservatorium, but they just give a really minor bonus to happiness. If we had building constrictions, well, there is a limit of the number of buildings that can be in the game, and if we were reaching that limit, the theatre and conservatorium would be the first to go. So a complete waste of a building, really. Blacksmith, you get 4 tiers. 4 tiers. So you can go up 4 times. Where is Blacksmith? Smith, there it is. 1, 2, 3, 4. All the way up to Armourer and Elven Plate. So on to the scripts then. Well, covering in brief again, of course, you get the Elven Alliance. So you need to ally with the Woodland Realm in order to obtain the start of the alliance. And then the first turn that it can happen is turn 40. So if you're allied with them before turn 40, it'll happen at turn 40. If you ally with them after turn 40, it'll happen almost immediately after you ally. And essentially you get a little warning that an army from Mordor is coming to attack you, and would you like assistance? You can say no, and then you will still be attacked by Mordor, and you won't get any reinforcements at all. And the size of the army size is huge. And it can very easily take your capital if you're not careful. So do be careful there. But if you do say no, you get access to the Berio I Engelaith, a formidable unit, and as you've seen already from the stats, you can train that unit. Or alternatively, you can say yes, then an army will spawn in your capital to help defend against the army that's coming to attack you, and then once you've killed Mordor off, then you have to send a diplomat up to Thranduil's Halls, or just the region. He can stand anywhere in the region, called Northern Woodland Realm. So take someone up there, a diplomat up there, and then you'll be asked if you want to form a more permanent alliance. And if you say yes, you get access to the Sylvan Gathering Hall, where for you get to train Woodland Warriors, who are an aggressive early tier unit. You get Elder Council, who are an aggressive mid tier. You get Woodland Sentinels, who are better archers than you've got for the same tier. And you get the Her I Lang, elite late game aggressive swordman. You do not get the Rangers anymore, the Hin I Daur, the Eyes of the Forest. They're no longer available to you. They used to be in older versions, but they aren't now. So that's the Elven Alliance script, and as I say, if you reject it, you get the Berio I Engelaith, and you also break your alliance with the Woodland Realm, and relations with them sour. So it's a choice between 1 amazing unit that's only available in Caros Galadon and Dol Guldur, or 4 potentially useful units that are only available in Caros Galadon and Dol Guldur. So it's quantity over quality, really. A very basic thing. There is also a second script for Lothlórien that introduces the brothers of Haldir, Rhumil and Orofin. And they come at certain key points. Chiefly the sack and capture of Dol Guldur, or just the capture of Dol Guldur. And then the second one, I believe, comes... One of them comes when you've got a certain number of regions, and I think then the other one comes when you've taken Dol Guldur. So depending on which way you do it, you might get one or the other first or second. And in version 2.2, they both come, I think, with... no, one has Gurveleg and one has Gurthinen, I think, if memory serves. So Gurthinen, one has those, and the other one has the Gurveleg, which we'll see in just a moment. I'm fairly certain those are their bodyguards. In future versions, they will both have March Wardens, and Haldir will be boosted up to having your elite archers, as you will see in just a moment. But those are all of the scripts. So the Woodland Alliance, which lets you train either 1 amazing unit or 4 useful units. And Rhumil and Orofin will join you when you start doing reasonably well. And they're the only other custom generals you'll get. Key map changes from previous versions, of course, is the removal of... I can't remember what it was called, the region that was on the west there. But it was moved, of course, down here, and it's now called Limhere and the Limlight Fields. I think it was called something... It's named after the hill that Aragorn and Arwen are betrothed atop, which is Amun something. And I can't remember the name. It's going to annoy me to no end. It's going to really frustrate me. Where's a barracks? Kerin Amroth. Yes, that's it. I knew it was in there somewhere. So not Anduin, Kerin. It used to be called Kerin Amroth, the settlement, and that was on the west. Of course, it's been moved to Limhir. Idarakan has been moved. The town itself has been moved to the east, but the region has also lost much of what it held over here in the west to break those two regions up a bit more. And the forest, of course, introduced in version 2, I think. Lothlorien now has a full river defensive line with only 3 access points to your capital. Crossing the Anduin also only takes place outside of those 2 rivers. As you can see, there's a crossing there by those 2 farms, and there's a crossing there by that fort. Or, in fact, the forts are there on purpose to defend the crossing. So you can move troops over, put them in the fort, and then when you see an enemy coming, stand atop on the western bank. So Caros Galadon can only be attacked by crossing these 3 bridges, which gives you some good defensive potential. So those are the key map changes. So tips and difficulty then. Lothlorien is often slated as actually one of the harder of the Elven nations because you've got Elven restrictions like expensive units, slow recruitment, slow replenishment. But you've also got the added benefit that Dol Guldur will throw units at you from basically turn 5-ish. And they never slow down. Dol Guldur has the benefit of capturing much of Rovanion whilst Dorwinion is tied up against Rune. So Dol Guldur are just expanding east and then they're turning all of their massive war machine to you on the west. So you can often find yourself slogged against them. Now, in days gone by, it was certainly advisable to rush Dol Guldur and get that as soon as humanly possible, and then you cripple them completely. But that comes with the added caveat that you cripple them completely and you take away your only threat. So it's tricky. Certain people will have no trouble with Lothlorien and others will struggle greatly. And whether that's by your own choice or not can kind of be up to you. It's a bit cheesy to rush Dol Guldur because Celeborn is insanely good. I'm really not overestimating him. He is incredible and a formidable general. And if his ridiculous missile stats aren't enough for you, he's also an excellent cavalry killer. And of course, Dol Guldur's faction leader is famously mounted, and no trouble therefore for Celeborn if you fight in the same battle with them. So it's cheesy rushing Dol Guldur and using your OP generals to take it, but it's also, if you struggle with the Elven slow replenishment and costly armies, it's the only way to go, really. Again, like the Woodland Realm, Lothlorien's difficulty comes really in the slog festival that is Mordor. But rest assured, owing to discussions in the Discord recently and my own machinations, I hope to have plans to jazz Mordor up a little. They will still be a horde nation and almost the quintessential, but we'll just try and throw a bit more variety in there rather than the constant stream of Uruk forces, which is what late game Mordor unfortunately is. It's just 5 full banner armies, each with 20 Uruk units, and you just think, God, this is boring. So we'll try and jazz it up a bit, but no promises. So that's the campaign map for Lothlorien. Let us now venture over to the battle map and take a look at what we can see in their roster. Welcome then to Lothlorien's overview, and unfortunately I think Lothlorien may actually hold the accolade of having the smallest roster in the entire game. Very, very depressingly small, unfortunately. But still, it covers much of what you need. So a brief overview will show you, of course, that you're a very strong archer nation with a lot of options over there. And you've got solid infantry as well. But unfortunately, unlike the Woodland Realm, your cavalry stops after the first 2 tiers. Or the first tier, really. Because you don't really have a militia tier. So your cavalry is not readily available. You don't have elite cavalry either. So it should also be said, I banged on about it in the Woodland Realm overview, but Lothlorien are very much the defensive of the Woodland Elves, or the Tawarwaith, the Woodland Elves. And Wood Elves is a better way of saying that. And the Woodland Realm is the more aggressive nation. So the Woodland Realm have higher attacking stats and in most cases slightly better archers, which is slightly contrary to the lore, but we've done it for gameplay, whereas you have much more defensive units. So not only your stats better, but your units just have a more defensive-y theme to them. So starting with your base and entry level, you of course have Lorien sentries. They share an awful lot of similarities in looks with the Woodland Realm, except of course your colour scheme is grey, which is the colour of the bark of the trees of Lothlorien, the Malorn trees. And so grey is very much their equivalent of camouflage, as they only ever fight in their homeland. So Lorien sentries are your starting unit. Oh, I haven't grouped them properly with tier 1. That's going to bug me. Let's put them in there. So there they are. Sentries, 7 attack, 4 charge, but a 15 total defense. So as I say, not as aggressive as Woodland Realm, but more defensive. Usually represented by a higher defense skill rather than a higher armor, which is defense skill is, again, obviously they all have pros and cons, but defense skill is usually better than armor, because armor can be countered with armor piercing, but armor is factored in with arrows and defense skill isn't. So as I say, plays. They cost 760, which is an awful lot for a starting unit with good morale and good morale response. But they're just a standard sword and board, a solid defender of Lothlorien. And supporting them are even more defenders with the warders, who have a 16 total defense. 1 less on the attack, the same charge. And this is the spear version of the sentries. So quite simply, a anti-cavalry early tier unit, costing about the same, although it doesn't show because they're mercenaries. Good morale response. Bonus against mounts, and again a bonus specifically against Kumul. And if they train any Shadow Knights, other Shadow Knights as well. Lorien archers representing formidable starting archers, as all elves have. 7 missile attacks, so you're already better than human rangers with your entry level archer, which is particularly useful. 10 defense, 6 melee attack. They are good all-round units. Good morale response. They will fight very well when they run out of arrows as well. Do not write them off once they have loosed everything they have to offer with their bows. Speaking of bows, one of your 2 cavalry options are Lorien scouts. Much like the Woodland Realm, you've got a cavalry archer unit, and they're just cavalry archers. They're very, very useful. Do note, however, that their horde formation, unfortunately, a bug of the game, is not actually very good at charging enemy units. And so, whilst they theoretically get the bonus of being cavalry when they charge units, they're let down a little by their terrible horde formation. But the horde formation is better and more accurate for cavalry archers, and it allows you to identify that you've got cavalry archers straight away. And it also helps to play down the fact that you shouldn't really be using them to charge into the enemy because they're cavalry archers, not melee units. But they are pretty good, and even with the animation, the bugs of the horde mode, they still are cavalry. They still will do well. But 7 melee attack, which is a good for a starting unit. A secondary attack of 10. No, they don't have a secondary attack. That, again, is an error and should be deleted. Their melee attack is 7. Missile attack is 6. Charge of 5. 12 total defense. Taking away the horse, then, they are arguably your worst unit. But with the horse, it boosts them up a little. They are supported by Lorien Lancers, and as I say, not an elite late-game cavalry, which is some may consider a shame, but your total defense is only 14, so you're not even out of the first tier. Your charge is 11, which is quite useful, an attack of 6 with a secondary of 10. So they get a spear in their initial attack, which always gives a boost to cavalry, and they draw swords when they have charged. 900 gold coins is fairly costly, though, and so it may be a bit of a gamble between, do you want mobile archers or do you want or do you want charge cavalry, because they cost the same, and money will be tight if you play as Lothlorien, because money is very hard to come by. Then we come to the 2 incredibly specialist units that Lothlorien is gifted with. The 2 units, Gurveleg and Gurthinen. If you're interested, Gurveleg means great death, and Gurthinen means silent death. And they are silent, certainly. Both of them can hide anywhere. Both of them have almost identical looks. One's a high attack melee, one's a high attack archer, which you'll see as we go through them. So, hide anywhere, as I say. They frighten nearby enemy infantry, which gives them a good boost in melee. Their attack is 12, which is very good, but not armor piercing. Their defense of 14, though, is useful, very useful, because it's similar to the other defensive units you get at the start, or the other units you have at the start, meaning they don't lag behind in defense. They're not prohibited in their defense purely because they have a good attack, is what I'm going with that. They're very good morale as opposed to good morale of the units beneath them. And they are Lorien's answer to strike infantry. Rather than being AP, they hide anywhere, which does come in immensely handy, because then you can build your army in a line here, hide those off somewhere over there, and then they get the perfect opportunity to flank. And speaking of flanking, one of the game's only strike archers, if you will, are the Gurveleg. Now these guys are incredible. They can hide anywhere, they get a bonus against cavalry, and they are effective against armor. But They have a missile attack of 14, which is possibly the highest bow missile damage of any unit, including Hinidawa and including Lothlorien Guard. Their melee attack is 11 when they finished, and their defense is 11, so the worst defense of any of your units. But they also get Silver Thorn arrows, the only other unit that does, and the reason you no longer get Hinidawa from the Woodland Alliance script, because you've got your own version. But you will note that this is not a typographical error, which is what typo is short for if you're interested. 4 missiles is all you get. Each man can fire 4 of their incredibly overpowered arrows, and they can only shoot to 70 meters. The idea of this unit is that they are an up-close, punch him in the face and make it hurt archer unit that doesn't have very many arrows. They're kind of like a javelin unit that happens to fire the javelins from a bow. It cannot be explained how incredibly powerful these people are. And they are only let down by the fact that you have to basically be standing on top of the enemy to shoot them, and you can only shoot them 4 times. But 2 volleys from these gentlemen is enough to take down almost any unit in the game. That is very much the point. They are your ultimate assassins. If the enemy army is all trash except for 2 elites, then try and kill the elites with the Gurvileg. They will do very, very well. They're not too bad. Costing 1,175. That may sound like an awful lot, but given their power, it really isn't. And remember that the body piercing will go through anything. So if the enemy bunches up and you target one of those units, it will still damage any other units that happen to be grouping up with that unit. And so these 2 are so fascinating. They're such a simple little concept, and yet they totally shake up Lothlorien's gameplay, because they are unlike any other unit that we have in the game. In these 2, and they're so much fun to use. If you can get these out, do. Now, do note that I do actually believe the Gurvileg come after the barracks event, which is represented by this large gap, which is unfortunate. But in terms of their non-arrow stats, they are very much a tier 1 unit. Once they have finished firing their arrows, they are really not that great. They're a much, much worse version of the Gurthinen. So do be careful. So jumping to tier 2 then, your post-barracks event main line are Yavanna's Chosen and the Sentinels of Kerin Amroth. We'll start with Yavanna's Chosen. We must not let go of hope. They are, of course, women, and they speak like that on purpose. They have halberds, not pikes, if memory serves. I can't remember if they were changed to pikes or not. We were discussing possibly doing it. I think they might have been changed to pikes. I cannot remember, unfortunately. Either way, they're pikes or halberdiers. If they are pikes, they're incredible. If they're halberdiers, they're still really very good. Defense of 20, 9 attack, 5 charge. Very good morale response. Bonus against mounts, of course. They're just excellent halberdiers / pikes. I'm leaning toward them being pikes because they aren't armor piercing, and we made almost every halberdier unit armor piercing. And these people aren't, so they may well be pikes. I couldn't tell you, I'm afraid. Should have looked it up. Sentinels of Kerin Amroth supporting them. Oh, the Yavanna's Chosen cost 1,100, so they're actually cheaper than the Gurvileg. So do be careful. Do watch out for that. Sentinels costing the same. Attack of 12, defense of 22, charge of 5. They are a slightly more aggressive and less susceptible to flanking version of Yavanna's Chosen, but of course they are men rather than women, so they'll talk like men when you click on them. They're adept at hiding in woods, which is the upper version of hiding, which means basically the whole battalion can hide if they stand on a single tree. Very good morale response again. All elves getting a negative in desert and a bonus in forest and snow again. Supporting them in the ranged category are the Galathrim March Wardens, who used to be called Galathrim Rangers, I think, or Woodland Rangers, possibly. They're the closest thing elves have to a rangery kind of unit. Missile attack of 10, which is insane. They can hide anywhere. They have exceptional accuracy with a 230 meter range and 34 missiles. So they are the absolute opposite to Gurvileg, where Gurvileg are short and low missiles and high damage. The March Wardens are average damage with insane range, excellent missiles, and exceptional accuracy. They're just incredibly good archers, and for the cost of 1,000, totally worth it. Not that great on a bodyguard, unless it's Rumil and Orifin, who are just nods, really, rather than mainline dependable warriors. Once they finish with their bows, melee attack of 9, defense of 13 is not very good. Their defense is worse than your starting melee tier, so be careful of that. They won't do very well. I mean, they're much better than other factions' archers, but they're still not going to win any awards. Coming to your elites then, you've all seen these units before. They've just got a name change. Elbereth Swordmen and Elbereth Guards. The Guards are the defensive version with a 32 defense and an attack of 14. Do note that they don't give morale bonuses to your troops though. That's something they do not do, but their morale is locked and excellent on top to boot. So they won't run away by their own volition, you'll have to tell them to. Of their defense, 15 of that is armor, so a full half of their defense is armor, which means armor piercing units can bring down your total defense by around 7 points, which is fairly substantial. Support from the swordmen. Do note that they're swordmen as in two-handed and not sword and board, so you will note that Lothlórien will certainly not feature in the top 10 sword and board units because they don't have any elites that are. So they're strike infantry, which is denoted by their very high attack and charge. Their defense is lesser because they don't have a shield, and of course they aren't as defensive as the guards, so the defense skill is also lower. But again, they don't give morale bonuses to your troops. Their morale is excellent and it is locked. And you will note that despite the picture, they actually have dark blue capes, not green as seen there. Sorry, need to update those images. But that's made with the video editing thing, which I haven't downloaded and never used, annoyingly. Anyway, Elbereth Archers. This is the future version's bodyguard of Haldir, your elite archers. They're just incredible archers. So you'll note that their missile attack is the same as the March Wardens beneath them, but they are much better in melee, almost double on the defense. So their defense is 13, their defense is 23, so obviously 10 more. Their melee attack is 12 and their charge is 5, which is very similar to the March Wardens though, but it's in obviously their survivability where they are boosted. They cost only a little bit more as well, at 200 gold coins more, with very good locked morale, 210 meter range, very high accuracy, and 32 missiles. The March Wardens are better archers than the Elbereth Archers, but the archers, the Elbereths, are better overall, and that's why they are better. They will fight really very well in the late game, whereas the March Wardens will die as a knife would carve through butter. So would your enemies carve through your March Wardens in the late game. And finally then we come to your Uber Elite, and a unit only available should you reject the Alliance, the Berio I Ingalaith, the Protectors of the Forests. Or the trees, sorry. Quite literally the trees. Galaith is the same where Galathon gets its name and Galadrim get their name. It's tree. Melee attack of 16 with a spear and shield, which is very good for a spear unit. Missile attack again is only 10, so do note that your archers cap out at 10, save for your Gurvileg. But their charge bonus is higher than your other archers, and their defense is 33, which is really very good. So they are excellent archers with the same range of missiles and accuracy as the Elbereths, but they are then even better spears. So they're basically Elbereth archers with Elbereth guard stats. They're not armor piercing though, do note that. So you don't get any armor piercing bonuses from them. But they're just excellent spearmen and excellent archers. And so for a bodyguard for turn 1, they are a formidable unit. Now actually, as that message says, I think they only come from Caras Galadhon and Lim here, not Dol Guldur. I was incorrect in the beginning. And you have to reject the alliance to get them, which was correct, of course. Oh dear. Take a breath. My throat hurts so much today. I've cut out so many coughing fits from this video. Right, Elbereth Sentinels, the bodyguard. You'll note that they are red, which allows you to see them very easily on the battlefield. And they are, again, formidable units with an 11 missile attack, so the highest of your mainstream archers, not counting, of course, Gurvileg, who aren't mainstream archers. Very good and locked morale, so your general will only run away if you tell him to. They get a bonus against mounts and a bonus against Kamul's Shadow Knights again. They're a two-handed swordman unit when they have finished with their arrows. So in melee, they are a worse version of the swordman, but they have a higher defense overall and much better missile stats than anyone else. So they are primarily archers, but in the late game they won't fight as well as your dedicated elites, the Engalaith or the Elbereths. But they are still incredibly good, don't underestimate. They'll absolutely eat through orc trash in the early tier, so no trouble there whatsoever. Your captain retaining the old look that has since been completely abandoned, which is why he retains it, because no one else in the game now looks like that. way back when, before the Hobbit movie came out and the Hobbit designs were created, that is what Lothlorien's elites used to look like. And so to reflect, obviously, a bit of our heritage and to keep the general completely unique and obvious on the battlefield, which is always my main aim for captains and generals. I want them to stand out. So which is why your captain is not only the only green coloured unit in your entire army, but also wears armour that no one else has. So there he is. So that's it. That's the realm of Lothlorien, and we now come to fight against a foe who we may well fight against if we played the game ourselves. So we come to the fourth faction left, and guess the faction. So there's a lot of browns and reds going on there, and there's a fair bit of cavalry. It looks like they've got a brown banner as well, with some sort of gold motif in the centre. There's a few speckles of green in amongst there as well, which is a big giveaway. And there's also a lot of units that seem to be in horde formation, which is another big giveaway. Because, of course, as we curl back around to our own formation, as the AI always just absolutely wigs out and doesn't know how to fight battles, it is the Vale of the Anduin. Or Vale of Anduin, as it's shortened to. Charging in their own elves to meet Death at our hands. There they are in, as I say, their browns and reds, very much the predominant colours of the Anduin. There's Karuk Guard with their much better look that they have in version 2.2 with such a nice shield, such a good quality shield. And there's the unit that most people play the Anduin for, of course, the skin changers, the beasts that they are, as we shall see in the next episode. Vale defenders with their pikes holding the line. Karuk Guard are blustering down the middle, charging in. There's Bjorning warriors as well, and Woodman warriors. And out to the cavalry of the Anduin, the Aethiod. Charging down the line there. Of course, the Aethiod, very much one of those areas where we've taken liberties with the lore, because the Anduin no longer has any Aethiod. I don't really know how to say that one, I'm afraid. I know that Aored is pronounced A or Red, separate sounds, and I've always taken that, therefore, to mean that it's Aethiod. Again, separate sounds. Aethiod. Aethiod. Aethiod, that's probably how it's pronounced. I don't know. If you've got any ideas, do let me know. I've never looked into the Anduin pronunciation of Aethiod. I used to call them Aethod, but who knows? We all fall into bad habits. Oh, there's the bears slaughtering Ivana's Chosen, absolutely massacring them. Of course, the reason I was talking about the Aethod is because they have since moved to Calanathan and they became Rohan, and all of their number went with them. So they shouldn't really exist, but they give the Anduin some much-needed late-game punch. And there's their horse archers firing in there as well. The Anduin is a very fun faction again. The Wildmen factions I actually really like. They're such a hodgepodge of various types and styles, and I think they're good fun. But there we are. So that is the faction overview for this week, and it was, of course, Lothlorien, and Anduin will follow next week. Now, next week, I also hope, of course, to bring you 2 Gundabad episodes as we kick off that campaign, and maybe something else that's a little unexpected as well. But until we speak again, dear friends, that concludes today, and so nevarne den perimad melunin, and farewell.